Hello and welcome to a new episode of Immigration and its Effect on People. Toni Jammal, an immigrant from Lebanon and back to Lebanon. Let's see how immigration affected his life. Please help me welcome Toni Jammal. Ahlan Toni Jammal, it's my pleasure to have you today.
Hi, Aman. It's my pleasure to be here. It's nice to have you. Nice to talk to you.
Of course, actually, your story is very interesting and it caught my attention to the point I called you last week. I said, listen, we have to do an interview. We know, as far as I know, that you immigrated to the United States and you went back to Lebanon. We're going to put this situation in a box for now and let's dive into feelings if you don't mind.
Sounds good.
Okay. So when you hear the word immigration, what comes first to your mind?
Immigration is such a big topic, for especially right now. I think in Lebanon and in the U.S., which is great. To me, when I hear like the story of my own immigration, I think of August 15th, 1995, which is the date on which we immigrated back to the U.S. or to the U.S., I should say. Um, I also think of like what comes to mind. Like I just say that was the day or the evening we left. I remember that year, which was just very heartfelt for me and my family. It was something that we'd celebrated every year. So when I think of immigration, I think also of privilege in a weird way. Like to me, I feel very fortunate to have had the experiences that I've had as a result of trying a new country out. Especially that it was the U.S. I think it's something that immigration was something that my family had been attempting um, beyond the many wars that we'd been in Lebanon. So when we got the opportunity, it happened to be one that was already sort of from my grandmother's side, and so we were lucky enough to have gotten the chance to go. Now, immigration for us was really just a lineage to my ancestors who are from the U.S. and from Pennsylvania and New York, and back from the early 1900s, which was the beginning of this idea of the melting pot in the U.S. When the country became really a hub of immigrants, which is amazing. So when I think of immigration, I think of that positive piece for me of the amazing opportunities and implications that it provided me and my family in life. The growth that we had, the sort of this mental development that I think we really needed to go from somewhere so small like Lebanon and so tight knit to somewhere so large, and to have lived that adventure was really amazing. That's at least the positive aspect of when I think of immigration. And when I think of the sort of the more worrying aspects of the immigration piece, I think of the barriers that come to mind. For example, language barriers. Potentially, a lot of people do encounter that, down to potentially an accent that you have to develop over time as you assimilate, as in school, etc. Employment opportunities, things that you have to really overcome and think about when you are immigrating. Housing, access to local services, knowledge of local laws, transportation issues, cultural differences like raising children, caring for your parents, potentially prejudice that you have to become aware of. So a lot of those things I feel are on the sort of like the barriers that come with immigrating. And so when I think of immigration as a topic, I really do think of the adventurous side, and I think of the planning side. And the first is, the first part of what I was mentioning was the adventurous side, and that I think will stay with me as a skill set anywhere I go. The U.S. was really just like a launch pad for me, sort of like a stepping stone towards seeing the world, and seeing Lebanon from a different perspective, from a perspective of opportunity and potential. So does that answer your question? Kind of.
Of course, and you elaborated well. So the perception of immigration, it's intellectual and at the same time it's a little bit emotional. as I heard you saying, the transition was easy because of your lineage, the ancestry, people they were before you in the United States. So the idea of adventure and migrating to another country was very exciting, but at the same time, you had to face all the barriers like languages, like prejudice, like opportunities. Tell me about yourself and about your own feelings. How did you deal with the transition, and how did you face the components and the requirements of a new country?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question because I have to think of the answer not just on my own behalf, but on behalf of people traveling alone or traveling with family. I think for me, I was lucky to go with my family. I was a child when we immigrated, and it was a family of four essentially. And when we were in the U.S., we had already existing family who helped us enroll in school and get housing and get the support that we needed, and get a lot of our questions answered so that we could essentially hit the ground running as much as possible. For me, it was really about understanding my presence in school and how to how to do well and how to succeed, carrying with me this sort of like scholarly or maybe even work ethic that I was taught here early on in Lebanon, and carrying that forward and sort of representing myself properly in
So you
school.
were a good student, it sounds. You were a great student.
I love school,
You
I
like
did
to be
really
a
enjoy it.
student, yeah.
Yeah. I started here, I'll be honest with you, I had some really phenomenal teachers in Lebanon who left a really like amazing, formidable impression upon me. One of them we all know and love, Lilian Shantiri, if I can
You
mention
can, of
her name,
course. Yes,
was a
you can.
phenomenal teacher for many, Arabic and other subjects in school. But she's one of those people who really taught me how to um, not just be studious and focused, but also where to find space to make a mistake and where to find room to be honest about it in school, and how to get support when I needed it, which I thought was a really great skill that I learned from her. She was also a very kind person, which a lot of times we come across people, whether they're teachers or not, who may not embody this sort of skill set or this competency, which
Especially
I,
back then, yeah.
especially back then, and even nowadays, I think, when someone doesn't have to be supervised to be good and kind and respectful towards students, they just do it because that's who they are as a person. That leaves a great impression upon
Impact,
people. So
yeah.
it started with her, and other teachers as well, who I still adore to this day, who I feel like I have to make proud every day. I don't know why. So, but anyway, back to the idea of immigration. For me, school comes to mind because it was the structure that I had to assimilate into per se in the US. So it was about making friends and learning how to dress and representing yourself and doing well in class, and at the same time, learning how to take tests correctly, which is a really odd thing to say in the US. You have to take tests using scantrons, whereas in Lebanon, at the time, even today, you still have to answer questions written.
Fully,
So
yeah. In America, we
fully,
have the optional. They give us options.
yeah, multiple choice, exactly,
Yeah.
which
Do
was a
you
big
think?
problem for me,
Yeah, because in a way they teach us to think. Because when
right?
they gave us options and they're very similar, you need to think well to see what is the right answer. In Lebanon, you have to pour all your knowledge in
Yeah,
one piece. If you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't know. So yeah.
exactly.
So how was it? How was it in the United States? How did you
Yeah.
adjust?
I think, within the topic of school, you have to, we made friends easily. We're very sociable people. We tend to be really inclusive. We bring people into our circle. We join other people's circles. So that to me was a great skill set as a child, to find my answers and to really to kind of identify myself and kind of form my identity as I was growing.
Really? So
And
you
I
were
think,
welcomed. I'm sorry to interrupt you. You were
yeah,
welcomed. You didn't
yeah,
feel isolated because you had like the skill sets, being a sociable person. You attracted people around you. You were popular.
I think it's more that it was easy, and it was. it wasn't a lot of effort to find friends and to be comfortable in school. So this is a good moment um, to sort of give that bit of advice to everybody else. My parents were very much involved with the student group friend group within my school, so they understood who my friends were and the kinds of influences that I had, which
Mm-hmm.
is something that you know, my entire family still does, and I advise everybody to not be afraid and to be involved in the lives of their, in the lives of the friends of the kids and etc. So that to me was very helpful, if that makes sense. So beyond that, as far as the extracurricular activities, the sports, etc., that we did, I it might sound silly, but one of the things I did when I was like mid-teens, 15, 16, was join a gym. So that's something that was my pastime a lot of times, years and years, which gave me a place to think and to kind of find peace, which was kind of cool. It's a safe spot to be, and not to mention sports groups and soccer and baseball and all the stuff that we did to have fun.
So you were
Yeah.
busy dealing with a new culture, you were happy, you didn't face any adversity whatsoever?
We did, absolutely. I think, to me, I'll tell you this early on. I like to really describe things very optimistically and positively. This is just the nature of my character. But, obviously, everybody will face adversities, many of which we may not be fully aware of growing up. But as a grown up, looking back at it, there were many moments where you feel judged for being different. You have to drop the accent in English early on so that people can understand and can relate to you and can find commonalities with you. And especially the schools we were in. Um, Beyond that, you have to be prepared to learn other languages if need be so that you can fit into multiple cultures, because especially in California, we have a lot of many cultures. We have
It's a
a large
melting
Arab
pot,
community.
yeah.
Yeah, we have Spanish speaking cultures, etc. So it's helpful to make friends and to overcome adversities by learning more about other cultures, if that makes sense.
I understand what you're saying. Let me ask you really quick. So, when you have the Spanish community around you, do you feel closer to Spanish culture than American culture? Was that helpful to feel your way around?
That's a good question. It's funny you asked that, because I tell a lot of my friends in the U.S. who happen to be of Hispanic origin, for example. We laugh and we talk about um, like previous shows that we would watch together, like we would watch as children, and we'd find a lot of commonalities, which is hilarious. So we'd bond over things that I would watch with my family, like dubbed Spanish movies and TV, essentially, and we would talk about those artists and those singers, and there are a lot of similarities in our cultures, in terms of values, maybe food, etc. Like there are
Family
a lot
life,
of
yeah. Values,
now,
moral,
yeah,
religion. They're
that's
very religious.
sure, yeah, absolutely, and that's not to say that the American culture is not that way. I think the American culture is more. I would think it being more accepting and also careful and thoughtful in bringing people in and in making sure that people are well taken care of. So for me, it was my opportunity and sort of duty growing up to understand how to really get close to all kinds of people, including people who are just naturally happen to be from the U.S., not just folks who are immigrating or people who are maybe first generation. So that was a skill that I had to learn, is to be open and to cultivate relationships and be forward and honest, etc. So those are the sort of the virtues that we use with anybody, and I think that that's something I had to leverage to make all kinds of friends, including from the American culture.
Great. And it seems like you dropped your accent very early. Was it easy to drop the accent, to blend? Or you made a big effort every single day? It was a daily effort because I hear you, I have an accent. When I hear you, I feel like, wow, he's an American, huh? He's flying. Accent
That's fine.
wise, I mean.
I think it's cool to be able to, it feels like you really have assimilated um, when you have sort of, when you feel like you're speaking like everybody around you.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Exactly.
and it's a nice feeling. It's like mastering a language per se. You're like, oh, great, I'm fluent in Italian. That's awesome, you know? So
Yeah.
accent or no, I think you need a great grasp of the English language and the professional English language as well, so that you can do well.
Right.
However, the accent, I think for me was just a piece of cultural assimilation that I felt I needed early on.
Mm,
So 13, 14, 15 years old, that's when you really feel it in high school.
yeah. Tony, your experience is a very encouraging one. You don't stop on the negative one. You're aware that we need to face those difficulties and we need to overcome those difficulties because it's a new adventure and it's a new skill set that we need to learn. And you were happy, you were excited, and the good thing in your experience is. Overshadow the negative things, let's say learning new language, being picked on just because of your accent, stuff like that. Let me ask you, what did immigration teach you? And the most, what did immigration as an experience teach you?
That is a really phenomenal question. It's a heavy duty question. You know what they say in the U.S. You hear that commonly said: everybody should be a waiter first. It's because it teaches you to be humble and to treat people with humility and with kindness and with respect. And it teaches you a lot of additional values. I want to correlate that a little bit with what I learned through through immigrating to another country. Essentially, I learned that it's important to experience somewhere bigger than you, and somewhere that where you potentially need someone to show you the way, because those are the things that are going to make you a stronger candidate in the workforce and a stronger person and I guess a bigger contributor in the world, if that makes sense, or in your community or in your family, etc. So for me, immigration, number one, what it taught me was to be to be open and to receive a lot of information, to be just ready to take on a lot of information. And the second thing it taught me is to sort of be structured and organized in what I'm expecting to do, whether it's making a plan to go to school or figuring out what I'm going to study, or what I'm doing research when I'm doing research on a topic, and how deep to delve in and where to ask for help. So immigration really kind of widened my horizon around how do I develop my own self as a person and as a worldly person, especially to the US, because it's such a large, phenomenal country, and also as a professional, because you have a responsibility, especially the Lebanese people who are immigrating. We are people who have a phenomenal work ethic, just outstanding. You don't meet
Exactly.
Lebanese people outside who haven't accomplished a lot. They're intelligent, and everyone is smart, everyone has chances, etc. But I really do feel very strongly about our work ethic, about our values as a people. So when we carry that forward, we tend to make it far in companies. We do well because we are inclusive. We absorb a lot. We tend to understand that let's not dwell on the negative and let's figure out where the positive is in the
Right.
situation. So
Right.
fine. And those things were all taught to me because of immigration. And I talk about that because I want people who do want to immigrate to think about this as a positive opportunity, not just, hey, there are things you're going to worry about, there are things that you're going to have to figure out, but there's a plan you can make, and in time these pieces will come together. So that bit of confidence comes through this development of a worldly view when you get to the US. I
I
hope that
like,
helps.
yeah, of course. I like the fact that you mentioned exactly that immigration taught you self-discipline and taught you also to be okay of being outside of your comfort zone. That's how you learn. That's how you become stronger. Um, it sounds like you've done a great job in the United States and you are excellent in your job. So if this was the case, what brought you back to Lebanon?
That's a good question that I myself am trying to answer. You know,
But it's an
My
exciting one. I feel like emotionally you had some duty to give back to Lebanon.
yeah,
This is my assumption. I'm ready to hear what you have to say.
yeah, it's a great question because I feel like my kite is always flying, and that string sort of pulled me back towards Lebanon. Um, the winds and the sort of the tail of the kite sort of pulled me back towards Lebanon. I think life is best lived when it is full of adventure and opportunity. I really do think that, and if we are in a position where we understand that, um, like myself, who is just one person, I can make that decision. So if we're in a position where we feel like, hey, I can come and live some time here and kind of, there's a motorcycle zipping
Experience
by my door.
how it feels like, or how does it look like to live in Lebanon for a short time? Is it for a short time or for a long time? Is it long
I think
term stay?
I think I'm capable of making this plan work sort of one big step at a time. I think it's important to be realistic and to observe and to give yourself time to understand your surroundings. For me, I really do like to scoop out the things that I enjoy the most. And I can tell you quite honestly, there are a lot of things to scoop out in Lebanon that are really enjoyable. Whether you are walking on the beach in Batroun, or you are going to play in the snow in Faraya, or you're visiting the many saints, or you're going to downtown Beirut, or whatever it may be.
Or meeting
The
the friends and the family, or smell
exact
the shawarma, or saying
the food
hi,
is great,
kifak.
but really the social component is really important to me. And I think friends, etc., in the U.S. are good and fine, but I think in terms of being connected and being part of your sort of like biological root is something that I really want to explore right now in this period in my life. I'm a creative person. I like to write. I like to create. I want to be able to have some information for myself, so I can feel like my life is filled with all kinds of adventures.
Oh,
And this
wow.
is the next chapter of it.
Oh, good. So it's a reaction of something you've missed in your childhood because you had to travel. The immigration was forced, or it was by choice in '95?
That is such a good question. I think to this day, the immigration is forced. I really did think about that before you even asked the question. And this is something that came about as a thought. I really do feel like we as people immigrate out of necessity. And I think that especially when there's a lot of, cultural, you're surrounded by so much cultural richness in any country you're in, any country you're immigrating from, whether it's because of your family that you have this richness, or because of the experiences or the potential in your life. But I do feel like immigration is a difficult journey, because you're still in a lot of ways tied to your upbringing and tied to this sort of this part of the life that wasn't really developed. Instead, you went and you lived your teens and your 20s and your 30s and etc.,
Right.
and your family life somewhere else. So I think it's important to not be afraid, um,
To go
and
back to
answer,
reconnect.
yeah, answer the questions that you may have, um, even if they're much more difficult now.
So
But
there is
yes, I do
something
immigrate.
inside of you. There is something inside of you.
Yeah,
You're looking for an answer, and I hope you're gonna find it.
yeah.
But tell me a little bit about a specific project that you would like to share it with Lebanese people. I knew that you have a plan, and you keep on repeating the word the plan, and I am in an awe in front of people who have a plan. Because when
Oh,
you
good.
have a plan, there is a goal by the end, and you want to reach it, and you go step by step. Can you tell us a little bit about your plan, and what would you like to present to the Lebanese people? Maybe your
Yeah, sure.
experience, maybe, I don't know, maybe a product.
Absolutely. It's funny that you say that. I think this started back in the U.S. during the sort of the COVID period, when I wanted to connect with my Lebanese community a bit more and kind of see what people are doing out there, to bring the conversation about Lebanon, specifically about Lebanon, back onto the table very strongly, especially in the last couple of years, and all of the sort of the tribulations that have happened in this country. So
Mhm.
I thought, one of the I love board games. One of the things I did growing up was play board games with my cousins here in Lebanon as a child. So I created one called Lebanopoly, which is
Lebanopoly, not the
right.
monopoly. How did they
Yeah,
let you
exactly.
mess with their monopoly?
Right. So it's a Lebanopoly game, and it's based on the many places that you can visit in Lebanon. It uses Lebanese currency. I'll show you, for example, like I have like the 100 liras. So the money in the game is actually like
Wow, how creative
old
is
money
that? So
from the
you take
80s and
a piece
90s.
of the monopoly and you develop it. You make لبنانتا يعني you made it
Le-
Lebanese. So they
eh,
didn't have any problem with that?
No, because this is something that's an artist rendition and it's completely different. It's really it's called Levanopoly, but it plays very differently.
Okay.
You've got fortune reading cards, for example. From growing up, my mom used to love to read the neighbors' fortune in their coffee cups, the chef. So as a kid growing up, I would memorize a lot of the things she would say,
Uh-huh.
and I put them on fortune reading cards, which are part of the game, and it's super.
Wow, how exciting.
Yeah, it's kind of a cute. It's a really cute way to represent Lebanon to someone living outside. And I can't tell you how excited it makes people when they're passing by to check it out. They always comment on the same thing. They say, "Oh, I remember what I used to buy with, Alf
Every
Lira."
single house has monopoly, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Yeah.
I remember, and then people passed by with their parents, and the parent was like, "You know what I used to buy with 500 lira? I used to buy, ice cream or a soda or whatever it may be." So it's nice that people rekindle their moments and their thoughts about Lebanon from a game that is super Lebanese. So this is something as a platform I started back in the US, which was pretty popular, and I wanted to continue the thread of it here in Lebanon. But the idea and the plan is to really connect with a lot of the producers who make uh, products in Lebanon, made in Lebanon, essentially, صنع في لبنان, and provide this channel of commerce to give them something
So
to
you
work
want to
for. And
legalize it and sell it in Lebanon as a product.
yeah, هلا هي وصلت على لبنان. So as of November, it'll be sold here. But ideally, you want to build on this platform to really kind of bring awareness to Lebanon and give this piece to somebody who's coming also back as a visit in the holidays and the next
Oh
summer,
my God,
etc.
how awesome is that?
And then
That's
spread it all
amazing.
over the world.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the idea. So we'll see how it goes.
I really admire your courage to come back, but it seems that because you have a lot to say, you're coming back to spread the wealth. That's what I know, and I want you to know what I know too. I hope the connection will stay high, and I'm sure it's gonna be higher. And I hope you're gonna see and many platforms where they welcome your product and be able to maybe develop another product. So, your job by trade, what is your job specifically?
My job by trade is business development and management. Yep.
Here we
I
go. So maybe I can call you if you have you're, you're in the right place for the right guy. So you're working for yourself. I'm sure
yeah.
success will be waiting for you.
Thank you.
Tony, I want to ask you two more questions.
Sure.
What's the difference between Tony Jammal, the little kid who left Lebanon and faced the immigration with love and excitement, but with some disappointment, and Tony Jammal, the accomplished guy who has a gift to offer to the world at this time?
That's a good
What's the
question.
difference? Yeah.
It's a good question. I love the way you word it. I think the difference between the former self and this new self is um, a lot of maturity from different angles. I think intellectual maturity, emotional maturity, the ability to understand and sort of the ability to understand and plan out the next step, really, and what's important to me. And yes, I use the word plan a lot, but I think underneath, I really do stick to where my heart goes a lot of the times. So I think that I'm just a lot more brave, um, th- and that I can make these kinds of decisions and experience this new phase of my life. So this next chapter per se. So I think the difference there is really just all of what I've amassed and I've attained in terms of skill sets and competencies, and I'm able to leverage them to boost my confidence forward with this decision. And that is due to immigration. That is due to all of the things that we learn when we leave any
Right.
space we're in, whether you're leaving your home or your country. It's the
Right.
same.
Right.
You do it because you want to do better. So do better.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
there's a lot of people out there who want you to do better, so me included.
Exactly. I bet you're good at playing chess.
Good,
I'm
thanks.
sure about that. Okay, the last question I need to ask you, Tony. If somebody is leaving any country, whether Lebanon or another country, they want to leave and they want to immigrate for some reason, what would be your advice for them?
That's a really great question. Something that I wish I knew when I left Lebanon, even as a child, I think, or as an adolescent.
We're all ears.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully it's a good answer. I think it's part one is essentially take with you your best attributes, the best part of who you are. Take that with you. Be aware of the parts that need work. So that way, when you get there, you are working on them because we have to get better as people. I think people assimilate better when other people allow them in their circles of trust, in their circles of business. And you need to take the best of who you are with you every day. So that mindset needs to be with you. I think the second thing is prepare. I think prepare by making a list of the important things to you. Be methodical and meticulous about your process. Talk to relatives and friends abroad about their advice and write that down. You may not want to take it all; it may not all apply to you, but take note of it. Research the communities that offer you the support that you need, like the ones that have maybe a place of worship that's important, so that you can have a community that you can transition into. Those might all seem very sort of like specific type checks, check boxes for you to have, but the idea is do your research, be prepared, and to take on the adventure. If that makes sense. It's better than going there and being like, what do I do now? It's better
Yeah.
to get there and be like, where do I get started? If that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Especially nowadays, it's easy. It's just one click away from all the information. We can Google it and we can level the field. And what I like the most with what you said, belong to a community, because mentally we need to stay sane. And if we're not emotionally, connecting and communicating with a bigger community that we belong to, it's not easy to handle the pressure of immigration because everything is new, um, despite the fact of being excited to face a world.
absolutely.
Any, yeah, um, anything you would like to say? Any question you wanted to answer that I haven't asked you?
Yeah, I guess I just want to ask you a quick question about your person. So, how different, maybe, what are some of the things that you may have experienced? Maybe advice that you would give to people who are just arriving into maybe the U.S. or other countries. What are some of the things that you feel make them successful beyond community?
Being resilient, being curious, being, as you said, courageous. And I think resilient is the most important thing. But if you're not born resilient, you need to nurture that and you need to cultivate it. So when you get down, you need to pick yourself up and face the next step, whatever it is. I don't have anything general to give to anybody, but if you're immigrating, the first thing you need to keep in mind is to be humble and is to accept everything new you learn from other people, and keep humble. Keep being a student is the best way to move up and be
Absolutely.
resilient. Yeah.
Yeah, I took some really great advice from people who trusted me. When I build trust with people in the business, in the workplace per se, in the many companies I worked for, the one thing that never failed me was building trust. And I think that's one skill set that Lebanese people in general have, is the ability to um, push themselves forward and build trust and build great relationships, because those are the things that are going to move you forward in life. So, but that's the
Exactly.
only question I had. I'm glad.
Oh, okay, exactly. So thank you. And since you said, they say usually a teacher is not the one who deliver instruction, is the one who inspire. Since you
Yep.
were inspired by by a teacher and many teachers that you owe them your life, and because of them, you feel like you can inspire other people. And I can tell you today that you're inspiring many. So thank you so much for your time
Of
and for
course.
your thoughts and for your kindness.
It's my pleasure. It was a lot of fun. Any opportunity to chat with you is a wonderful opportunity.
Oh, thank you so much, Tony. I
Sure.
think we'll see